Hello everypony, so glad you could all make it. Welcome to Rainbow Falls. My name's Lumen, I'm your local flight instructor, and I'm here to talk about a dumb idea that I thought of and then spent way too much time looking into. What if the main six grew up with each other's parents instead? So, follow me down to the chalkboard where I'll sketch out all of my ideas for you. And I present you all the charts. Throughout the 9 seasons of Friendship is Magic, we get to meet all of the main six's parents. We get to learn about the relationship between them and their daughter to various degrees of success. Because some of them are borderline dysfunctional as parents, I got to wondering, what living situations would be the worst and the best for the other members of the main six? We will be looking at living situations as a whole, not just parents, because there are more aspects to some ponies' upbringing than just their parents. Plus, some of them are dead, so they will be replaced with their actual living situation. Fortunately, I bought a pack of stickers from the store the other day, so we can use those to rate these combinations. So, let's get to it! Let's get the actual correct combinations out of the way. Applejack is absolutely perfect right where she is. Mr. and Mrs. Shy are good parents for Fluttershy, but also having to live with Zephyr Breeze is an immediate deduction of points. Wait, we're doing points now? Anyways, Igneous Rock and Cloudy Quartz are just not the parents for Pinkie. While we see them smile in Pinkie Pie's flashback during the Cutie Mark Chronicles, when we see them again during Hearthbreakers, they don't seem to be a fan of anything out of the ordinary, and Pinkie is, anything but ordinary. And yes, I see how off-center that sticker is, and no, I will not change it. You'll survive. Now let's continue. I don't care what anyone says, Rainbow Dash's parents are the absolute worst for her. I could make a whole separate video of why parental gladiance teaches a really bad lesson, and why her parents are making Rainbow Dash's life so much worse. But for now, let's just focus on the ratings and give them as big of a red cross as we can. We honestly don't know much about Rarity's parents. We only see them a handful of times throughout the show, but they seem to just be very average parents. Rarity doesn't really seem to appreciate them as much, but they don't look like bad parents at all. Twilight Velvet and Nightlight honestly seem like really good parents for Twilight growing up. They support both their kids in improving their magic, don't seem to pick any favorites, and are very excited for Twilight when she gets accepted into Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns. I know there are some hiccups down the line, once upon a Zeppelin, but we're just gonna look at their upbringing for now. Now, let's look at some parent-kid combos that I think are just okay. Not particularly good or bad. Twilight living at Sweet Apple Acres would be a good, yet uncomfortable way for her to be less of a hermit, and she could probably find good ways to practice her magic with the chores around the farm. I feel like Fluttershy's parents would be very supportive of Rarity's fashion as a creative outlet, just like how Mr. Shy collects his clouds, but Rarity's flair for the dramatic, and assuming she would clash pretty hard with Zephyr, feels like it balances out to just okay. And I think the same would apply to Twilight. She would do well in the quiet environment the Shies provide, but just Zephyr. Yeah. I think Fluttershy wouldn't particularly enjoy living on the rock farm, but her and Marble would probably get along well, and the Pie parents don't seem to mind Marble at all. I'm now starting to realize how Fluttershy would be fine for almost all of the parents, as Rainbow Dash's, Rarity's, and Twilight's parents all fall into this category too. The large amount of support from Rainbow Dash's parents would be good for Flutters, but I think it would also be very overwhelming. Meanwhile, Rarity's parents seem just okay. I honestly don't have any arguments for or against them. It just seems very normal and average. Meanwhile, I don't think Twilight's parents would really get Fluttershy, but be supportive of her nonetheless. And lastly, Dash would do fine with Twilight's parents. They're supportive enough. I think she would get along well with Shining Armor, and because she'd live in upper-class Canterlot, she might have an easier time getting into the Wonderbolts. The only reason I think this is just okay for me is because I feel like her dreams of wanting to join the Wonderbolts would be frowned upon by the ponies around her. Now for the good combinations. Rainbow Dash would do really well at Sweet Apple Acres. Her competitive nature, combined with the physical intensity of the chores at the farm, would push her to become even stronger, and she'd likely find a way to turn it into a challenge or competition of sorts. This one might be a bit of a surprise for you, but I think Applejack would do really well on the rock farm. In the episode Hearthbreakers, we see her clash pretty hard with Pinky's parents, as both families are very set in their own traditions. But considering she'd grow up on the farm, I feel like the farm life, whether it's rocks or apples, would suit her well. I think she'd get along with Limestone in a competitive sister rivalry kind of way, like she has with Rainbow Dash in the main show, and Marble isn't much different from Big Mac in that regard. Pinkie Pie would do really well at Rainbow Dash's parents. However, Pinkie receiving that much encouragement seems like it'll only be a matter of time before something disastrous will happen. Therefore, I'm just going to put a picture of Pony Oppenheimer that I found on the board here to reflect how I feel about this. This art was made by Helmy Art, link to the original will be in the description, also please don't question how Magnet is working on a chalkboard, okay, thank you! Rarity and Twilight would likely do really well with Dash's parents too. Rarity more so than Twilight, as she would soak up all the encouragement she gets and turn it into passion and flair, where with Twilight it might cause some annoyances as she just wants to quietly study. And finally, Rainbow Dash with Rarity's parents. They seem like good parents for her, allowing her to pursue her dreams like normal and being supportive of that, but I think she might find growing up with the dramatic and needy parts of Sweetie Belle a bit annoying at times. Now, for the bad ones. As you can see, there's quite a few spots left, so time to speedrun this shit and crack down on some bad parents. Flutters, Pinkie, and Rarity would not be able to handle the responsibilities of the farm life. Pinkie would get bored, Rarity is a diva, and Fluttershy simply does not have what it takes. Applejack and Pinkie would not pair well with the calm and shy nature of Fluttershy's household. Rainbow Dash, Rarity, and Twilight would all lose their minds on the rock farm. Rainbow Dash would be way too much for both parents, and I think Twilight would want to do more with her life and try to leave the rock farm as soon as possible. Rarity meets both of the above criteria. I feel like AJ wouldn't do well with Dash's parents either. She's more independent and wants to prove herself through her work instead of constantly being reinforced. And finally, Applejack wouldn't do well with Twilight's parents either. We see exactly what happened when she stayed with the Oranges in her flashback during the Cutie Mark Chronicles. If she would grow up there, I think it wouldn't be as bad, and her and Shining Armor's sibling supreme contest would be even more intense than with Twilight. And now I kinda wanna see that, but I think overall, AJ would still come to the conclusion that this life wouldn't be for her. Now, there are still 6 empty squares. One of those is, in my opinion, the best combination, and one of them is the worst. The absolute best IMO would be Rarity with Twilight's parents, with them living in upper class Canterlot and probably being as supportive of her as they'd be of Shining Armor. Rarity would likely become even more famous a fashion designer even quicker than we see her do in the show. Personally, I think Rainbow Dash with Fluttershy's parents is the biggest disaster you could ever ask for. She's even more cocky than Zephyr is, making the lives of Mr. and Mrs. Shy an absolute living hell, and I don't want to even get into the implications of all this, considering they'd be siblings in this scenario. Now, my sticker pack didn't come with any last place stickers, so I'm just going to place the trophy sticker upside down. That leaves 4 final squares, and honestly, I have no idea where to put these, especially with how little we know of Rarity's parents. If any of you have any arguments for where to rank these, please tell me in the comments. Thank you all for watching this very first video. I had a lot of fun coming up with and making these animations, and I want to give a massive thanks to Doc Anubis for pushing me to create this channel and actually make this video. Also, if you disagree with any of my takes, flame me in the comments.